Brother Shaw,
Yeah.
Wise,
Yeah.
Gary. Praise the Lord. But the reality of it is, with his election and the way he got elected, there comes a new debate.
Yeah.
And the new debate is about you, the relevance of you, the placement of you, the continuance of you. So what we got to talk about today is you. Keepers of the cause. KBC Leo, keepers of the cause. Now let me start out by saying, in the old schools like Dunbar, they understood there was a difference between learning and memorizing in terms of understanding. They understood that you got to understand why you do what you do, and not simply to do what you're told to do. The difference is one that's between education and regurgitation. It's the difference between the creator and the creation. It's the difference between the engineering genius and a robotic application. My partner here would often tell me, everyone with your skin ain't your kin. And the statement begs the question, does black leadership and the electing of black leadership equate to an electing of a black agenda? Some would suggest, black and white, or have you believe, black and white, that the whole goal of the civil rights movement was to elect black faces, to have black skin in all the means, to be able to say one day, you too can be president. Martin Luther King had a dream, but I dare say that it was deeply rooted in the American dream and reality that people in a democratic society are prone to promote their own interests. Don't get it twisted, as Brother Brown would say. Our forefathers were spiritual and pragmatic, hopeful and practical. For them and many others, the two were synonymous. When you had a black face, it equaled to a black voice. But if you haven't paid attention, look at the difference between the LBJ appointment of a Thurgood Marshall and the Reagan appointment of a Clarence Thomas. If you haven't recognized that now we find that there are black folks out in front of everything, from the end of affirmative action in Michigan to the celebration by all of a month of Confederacy in Virginia. But yet you can't find those voices when we want to talk about disparate treatment in terms of justice. We can't find those voices when we talk about misrepresentation in the judicial system. You can't find those voices when we talk about disparate opportunities in the economy. We got a problem. And we must understand that the difference between learning and memorizing is understanding. Let me put it another way. Let me go to church time. The idea of creating pharaohs and promoting Josephs that looked like the slaves was to stop the abuse of the slaves and promote the health and well-being of your people. Creating diversified pharaohs and slaves was not with the idea that I want to have diversity in who can whip my people. Let me put it another way. Putting people in the master's chair who look like us was done with the idea that they would urge, like Moses, the power structure to let my people go. Y'all ain't get that. Let me put it another way. Let me make it plain, as we say in the church. Putting one of us in the big house to be a Supreme Court judge, or putting one of us in the White House to be president, was not simply so that we could have folks that look like those we represent continue to be ignored, relegated, oppressed, and disenfranchised because they happen to look just like us. Y'all must be. The dream was not a colorful or colorblind America, but a fair, just, and unoppressive America. One where all people have the right and privilege to work, play, and raise a family. Here's the logo. When we relegate the dream to mean that we all work so that a few get ahead, then we no longer are keeper of the cause, but we peddlers of pimps. You are, I was, we are, KBC Leo. And the question being had on the public stage is, what is our relevancy? KBC Leo, the question of your relevancy has to do with the very thing that happened next door. You can talk about veterans and ask your senatorial candidates about that. You can talk about homeless, and you can talk about that. You are Kentucky Black Caucus local elected officials. When did you ask what are the top 3 issues in your platform related to black folk? Oh, that's a dramatic pause. I ain't forgot my speech. KBC Leo, who are you? You are unique to all the world. Do you know why? African Americans are unique in world history. We come from another continent and we have actually joined in with our oppressors to create a new people in a way that is flourishing and amenable. If you asked what is our gross product, the amount of buying power we have, and if we became our own nation, for example, categorized that way, we would rank amongst the top richest nations in the world. Yet we walk around like we're poor.
Right.
Within the African American experience, this generation is unique because it represents the only generation that is both experienced in integration and experienced in segregation. There was a cultural debate within the African American community as to what is the mantra of a people in a segregated land. The debate was the debate between a Booker T. Washington and a W.E.B. Du Bois. It changed and shifted when the opportunity to have an integrated society came, and then it became a debate that you experienced between Martin and Malcolm. In our radio show that I have on Sunday, we had Michael Jackson's death. We had commentators come in nationally. Young man from Lexington, living in D.C., Harvard grad, came on, was given an analysis. And one of the things he said was striking to me, brother. He said, you know, I didn't know until I was listening to the commentary that Michael Jackson was the first black to be on MTV. He said, I didn't know it. Why? Because he had never experienced a time and a place where there was not a black person on MTV. There was never a BET. He has no knowledge, personal experience. Despite all the wisdom and the book knowledge he's got, there is a disconnect in the historical ramifications of what he's thinking because he's never experienced it. And if we do not have your generation come in and pass along that information, I'm sorry to say that history has a horrible reputation of repeating itself. We're in phase 2, and you are the keeper of the cause. You stand up and represent people who don't know they have an interest, who forgot they had an interest, who don't care about their interest, who've been bamboozled and don't realize what their interest is because they're promoting somebody else's interest and put theirs aside. And you've got to be the one that stands up because the reality of it is you are a minority in America. And unless you are vigilant and understand that and understand and fight that justice must be won every day, then we will grow up with a generation that has a disconnect and history, shadow, will repeat itself. So it happens when you hear people say that, well, we're now done with race candidates. Oh, it's going to come. If you haven't heard that, it's going to come. We got Obama now. We don't need a race candidate anymore. You can stop that talk about the differences. You can end about disparity. We're in a different era now. And so it begs the question, what is the cause now for KBC Leo? The cause is